Hi, this is Grandma Lorie with the story of Daniel and the visions of two kings. After the golden statue and the fiery furnace, many years passed. King Nebuchadnezzar grew older, greater, and wealthier. Daniel was a high ruler in his kingdom. King Nebuchadnezzar looked around at his glorious kingdom, his fabulous treasures and wealth, and said, "No kingdom on earth is greater or stronger than mine. I am surely the best and richest king that ever lived. I am the most intelligent and powerful king ever." But over the years, he had forgotten that it was the God of Daniel who had made him so great, powerful, wealthy, and praised by everyone. He was sure it was his own intelligence, wisdom, and strength that made him such an amazing and mighty king. He smiled whenever he saw himself in a mirror and murmured, "I am the greatest king ever." One night, Nebuchadnezzar had a weird dream. As usual, none of his magicians or sorcerers could tell what it meant. But then he remembered Daniel and sent to bring him to the throne room. King Nebuchadnezzar told Daniel of his dream. He said, "There was a tree, so huge it could be seen by everyone. All kinds of animals felt safe when they lay in the grass below it, and the birds nested in the branches of the tree above. Then I saw a bright angel in my dream. It flew down near the tree and cried out, 'Cut down the tree! Lop off its branches, shake off its leaves, and scatter its fruit. Frighten the animals out from under it, and make the birds fly away. But leave the stump of the tree with its roots still in the ground.'" And then the dream ended. "Oh, Daniel, can you tell me what this dream means? No one else in my kingdom has any idea, and I feel that it's very important." Well, Daniel waited and prayed for a while for God's revelation to come. When it came, it stunned him. He clenched his eyes and teeth with dread. He was afraid to tell the king. The king could see his fear and stood up, saying, "Daniel, don't be afraid to tell me. I must know." Daniel said, "Your Majesty, I wish I didn't have to tell you. I wish this dream would happen to your enemies and not to you. But I do know what it means. This tree you saw represents a man. In fact, the tree represents you, O king. You are mighty and great, like the fruitful tree. You care for your kingdom with great wisdom, feeding your people and protecting your animals. But the Lord sent you the dream to make you remember and make you realize that all your glory, intelligence, and strength have been loaned to you as a gift by the true God of heaven, just as the true God gave you long ago the interpretation of your dream of the statue made of gold, silver, brass, and iron. In your dream, you saw an angel of the true God coming down and laying a curse on the tree, a curse on you, O king. The angel commanded the tree to be cut down, but the stump and the roots would be preserved. Please believe me, O king. This dream was a warning. The curse will be meant as a lesson for you from God. The curse is that your mind will be struck dumb like an animal. You will live in the fields like an animal, eating grass like a cow for 7 years, and not be able to act like a man. This will be your life until you truly learn that it is the Most High God who rules all the kingdoms of men, who gives power or takes it away from anyone he chooses, rich or poor." The king had fallen back into his throne as he listened, slumped and trembling. "No, Daniel, no! No, please, no! Not like an animal! What have I done that would anger God so greatly? I would rather die than this." Daniel fell to his knees before the shaking king, but answered, "Oh, great king, any man with power such as yours soon comes to believe there is no power above him, that all he does and all he wishes is right. In your great power, you have caused death and sin to come into your land and upon your people. You all worship idols. In anger, you wipe out whole cities of innocent people in war. You have given no thoughts to those who were robbed, murdered, and plundered. These things are horrifying to God. When God humbles you to the ground like an animal, only then will you fully realize that God is your master. The king began to moan in horror. Tears fell down his cheeks. But Daniel continued, "Remember the end of your dream, O king, that the stump and the roots left in the ground mean that you will get your kingdom back when you have accepted that the God of heaven rules even you." The king wept and begged, "Daniel, is there no way I can avoid this terrible curse?" "O king," begged Daniel, "listen to me. Perhaps if now you stop your sinful ways and your idol worship, God will relent. Do only what you know is right and just to all people. Be merciful to the poor. Perhaps God will spare you from this curse." Still weeping, the king commanded Daniel to leave. Did King Nebuchadnezzar change his ways? Perhaps for a few days or weeks, but then important things came up. He forgot Daniel, his dream, and went on praising himself for being the most powerful king in the world and ruling his people with no thought for what was good or evil. One day a voice suddenly came from heaven. "King Nebuchadnezzar, the day has come that you will no longer rule this kingdom." Suddenly King Nebuchadnezzar began to jerk and act insane, falling to his hands and knees, growling, barking, and shouting out strange sounds. The people in the palace didn't know what to do. They finally forced him out of the palace into the gardens and then into the fields around them, where he lived with cows and donkeys, but his servants did not dare harm him. In the fields, Nebuchadnezzar did eat grass like cows. He didn't care about his clothes, so he tore them to shreds, and his body was soaked with dew every morning. His hair and beard grew long and scraggly, and his fingernails were like birds' claws. But deep inside, Nebuchadnezzar must have been able to think like a man from time to time, because gradually he realized what he had become, that the God of heaven had indeed given him the mind of an animal and taken away his kingdom, just as Daniel had foretold. It took years for him to believe that if he repented of his arrogance and pride before the God of Daniel, perhaps the Lord would remove this curse. Did he not remember other miracles of the powerful God of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even to saving their lives from the fiery furnace? The king thought and wept and thought and wept. He slowly began to understand his pride and many sins, and slowly began to repent. At the end of 7 years, King Nebuchadnezzar looked up to heaven and begged, "O God of the universe, please, please, make me a man again. This time I promise to be humble, I promise." And his sanity returned. As soon as he could speak, he praised and worshipped the Most High God and vowed to worship him in humility forever. After that, Nebuchadnezzar ruled humbly and justly for the rest of his life. But after many more years, he grew old and died, as we all must. When he had been king, Nebuchadnezzar had a personality strong enough to rule a great empire. But his son, who came after him, did not, and was soon murdered. Within only a few years, one king killed another king until the last person sitting on the throne was named Belshazzar. And Belshazzar's story is a new one for you to hear and learn about right now. This new king, Belshazzar, was incredibly stuck-up, arrogant. He thought he was the king of the world. He praised his own might and power to everyone and did not care about any other person but himself. He was so disgusting, even his own people disliked Belshazzar. He was not good, not just or kind, but wanted everything for himself, especially ongoing praise of everyone in his empire. What Belshazzar did not know is that hundreds of miles to the east, a new kingdom had become greater and stronger than Belshazzar could ever have guessed. It was the kingdom of the Medes and Persians, who had joined together, and it had its eyes on taking over the kingdom of Babylonia, where Belshazzar was not paying any attention. At the time, the Medes and Persian army was almost at the city of Babylon. That was the time Belshazzar decided to have the biggest, best banquet anywhere. He invited 1,000 of his officers and friends to a great feast, along with their wives and girlfriends. Everyone there was getting drunk and laughing hysterically, drinking and drinking to celebrate their idols of gold, silver, brass, iron, wood, and stone. But the cups they used to drink to their idols were the very cups that had been stolen from God's holy temple in Israel. They were sacred cups of the Lord, and God was very angry. As King Belshazzar rose to declare a toast, he saw, as clearly as the cup in his hand, a great bodiless hand appear for everyone to see. As they watched, one finger of the hand carved words right into the plaster of the wall in the banquet room. It carved plaster as easily as you could make letters in soft butter. The king's jaw dropped, his face went white, and his knees gave out. He fell backward into his royal chair. Something inside him told him that message was about himself. His knees knocked together, and every hair stood on end. The carving hand finished and vanished, but the words remained on the wall. There was terrified murmuring all through the banquet hall. Belshazzar screamed, "Bring me the magicians and astrologers! Whoever can read that writing on the wall and tell me what it means will be dressed in purple robes of honor with a gold chain around his neck and become the third ruler in my kingdom." Though the magicians came running, none of them could tell what the writing meant. The king grew hysterical, his face showing the terror he felt. And his officers were afraid, too. They could see the strange words as plainly as the king could. When the queen, up in her chambers, heard what had happened, she hurried down to the banquet hall and said to Belshazzar, "Calm yourself, Majesty. Do not be frightened over this. There is a man in your kingdom who has within him the spirit of the gods. In the days of your fathers, this man was found to be full of wisdom and understanding. In the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, he was made chief over all the magicians and soothsayers. His name is Daniel. Call for him, your Majesty. He knows all strange things." Soon Daniel was rushed in to see the king. The king said, pointing to the words on the wall, "My wise men and astrologers cannot read that writing on the wall or tell me what it means. The queen said that you might know, and I will reward you with great wealth if you will interpret it for me." Daniel replied, "I don't want your gifts. Give them to someone else, but I will tell you what the words mean. But first think, O king. When Nebuchadnezzar ruled, all the nations of the world bowed to him. He rewarded or killed anyone he liked. But when his mind and heart became hardened with pride, God removed him from his royal throne and took away his glory. I know you have heard his history of 7 years of insanity, acting like an animal. You, O Belshazzar, have certainly heard the pride that was Nebuchadnezzar's downfall, and yet you have been arrogant, not humble in your kingship. You have defied the Lord God of heaven and brought here these cups from God's own temple. You have been drinking from holy cups while you praised false gods of silver, gold, iron, and wood. Those gods do not see, cannot hear, know nothing at all. But you have not praised the true God in heaven, who gives you the breath of your life and controls your destiny. That true God has sent these fingers to write an urgent message. It says, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. King Belshazzar was listening, eyes horrified, sweat running down his face as Daniel explained. And this is what the words mean, O king. Mene means God has numbered the days of your reign, and they are over, which meant you are done here. Tekel means you have been weighed in the balance, and God has found you unworthy, which means you are no good. Upharsin means your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians, which meant that God knew those enemies were right outside the walls right that minute, but Belshazzar did not know. Although shocked and shaken by what Daniel said, Belshazzar kept his promise to clothe Daniel in purple and give him a gold chain. But later, that very night, 2 nobles from his own court killed Belshazzar. Now, picture this. The walls around Babylon were about 8 stories high, about as thick as a 2-lane highway, and about 14 miles long on each side. The whole world figured no army could ever get into Babylon with those massive walls. But right while Belshazzar was having his huge party, the gigantic army of Medes and Persians were arriving right outside the great walls. But how could they ever get past those walls and into the city? Thousands of soldiers got instantly to work digging a great trench around Babylon. The Euphrates River ran under the wall and through Babylon, and it was diverted into the trench. That stopped it flowing under the wall and through the city, and left a huge hole beneath the wall, miles big enough for the Medes and Persians to wade through by the thousands and invade Babylon. So, in one night, those troops, led by Prince Cyrus and his Persian army, took Babylon over completely by morning, with very little fighting. Most of the city was asleep. After a few months, Prince Cyrus brought in his grandfather, King Darius the Great, who ruled over both empires, Persian and Babylonian, and governed them well until his death. Under the reign of King Darius, the whole country became organized for the first time in years. It was divided into 123 provinces, like states in the United States, and each province was given a good prince to govern them, like a governor. Daniel was made one of the governor princes and ruled so excellently, King Darius became his great friend and even thought of making Daniel the second main ruler over the entire kingdom, right under King Darius himself. Come again for my next story, because exciting things are going to happen to King Darius and Prophet Daniel. Bye for now.